Hey, welcome to the show.
Jeez.
Detroit
Gentlemen,
News sports editor in chief. I salute thee. Great person, great professional. Welcome to the show, Rod. As always, we try to get the pulse of Detroit sports from the Detroit News via Rod Beard. So thank you for definitely giving us your time. Hey, was there anything you wanted to bring him in as it related to what we were just talking about, Mr. Matthew Broder?
We were just kind of briefly discussing the local pro day that the Lions had yesterday, where they had a lot of Michigan guys, Eastern Michigan State, Western Michigan, and Darius Robinson out of Missouri, a couple other guys. I guess I'll just ask you: did you hear anything specific to come out of that? Anything from your guys at the Detroit News or the Lions?
no, nothing specific, but it's like you guys said, it's just good for them to get that opportunity to just show up and show out, and that's always hard when you're not one of those top guys and you're just kind of in the middle ground, and you've got to find your way. You just got to get an opportunity, and somebody will like you, and it may not be this year. The residual piece of that is always the cool thing is that, hey, we saw somebody 2 or 3 years ago at a camp. Now they're available. We're down because of injuries. Let's bring this guy in and have a shot. So those are always cool stories to see when those guys are able to do that.
Absolutely. And Rod, it's not something that I necessarily want to talk about it today because I'm still depressed. However, I have to, and I want to.
You can do this. You can.
I want to
through
get
this, Sam.
I want to get your opinion on this. If the Red Wings continue their late season tailspin and do not make the playoffs, is this season a failure?
No,
Ooh.
no, because
Thank you.
you have to get close. You have to play games that matter. And a playoff push is a playoff push, whether you get in or you don't. Obviously, it's better to get in. But if you don't, it's sort of, here's the mistakes that we made that we can't make next time. We know what it's like to be in the games that matter toward the end of the season. And that was always the thing. Hey, let's be in games. Let's vie for the playoffs. Even if we don't get in, let's get there. It's disappointing in the sense that they had played so well for much of the season, and toward the end, they just weren't able to finish it off, or maybe weren't able to finish it off, but it doesn't look good for them. But you like to see the effort that's there and that they played in games that determine the playoff seeding.
And you know what? I like that response because that was something we thought we were going to get out of the Pistons at least maybe
Exactly.
this year.
Exactly.
To see that out of the Red Wings, it helps to kind of temper it a little bit better when I actually compare the two situations. These are two kind of long-term or rebuilds going on right now, and so it's not good. It doesn't make me happy to see them drop that game. They still have an opportunity to pull through. But if not, I do believe that in the future, Steve Yzerman is set up well to be able to properly kind of augment this team. And they'll kind of have a much more, it's very clear right now exactly what they need, especially on the defensive side. And maybe a little bit more goal scoring help. I know that's something that my colleague Sam over here, he was going at this morning as it relates to the Brinkat.
Yeah.
He's not giving him any excuses. But I do have to talk about a team that kind of made, I think, everybody a little bit more happy yesterday, the Detroit Tigers. Talk about a nice win against the Pittsburgh Pirates. What's kind of the pulse around the Detroit News as it relates to the Detroit Tigers? 7-4.
Well,
Yeah.
it was simply that the bats needed to wake up, and the pitching would be able to carry them. The thought was always that the starting rotation was going to be good. The bullpen was going to be pretty good too. But will the bats be there early in the season when the weather warms up? Everybody generally picks up, but early in games, and that was the first week or so when they had the really hot start, was that, hey, they weren't winning games. Everyone was a one-run game, a close game that went to extra innings, and they were able to pull it out. So that's the mark of a good team, and it's good to see AJ Hinch is able to pull those strings and make the right reads on the lineup. And again, this lineup isn't supposed to be smashing the ball out of the park. That's why they didn't go and get a big bat in addition to Marcana. That was we'll figure some of these things out and we'll win just by savvy. And he's done that. You've seen that already in a few of these games where it's just, hey, we're going to go to our bench. We have guys who can step in who are starting caliber players at the plate. But when we bring them in off the bench, you're going to have to make some moves with your pitching staff to try to combat that, and we're going to make you make some mistakes in there, and they've done that.
Yeah, and you know what? We've been talking about our expectations, as a lot of people do when these seasons start off. And despite kind of the roller coaster start for the Detroit Tigers, our expectation is that they're going to have a real shot to compete in the AL Central. I wanted to be able to get your opinion on that, as well as what might be the talk around the office.
Yeah, they can compete in the AL Central. What are you going to need? 90 games to win the division, somewhere in there? Sure. And they're off to a hot enough start where you can see that that's a possibility. And that's been the thing, is always just, hey, these first 20 games don't come out at 5-15 or 7-13. You got to give yourself a shot. And they've already gotten off to a good enough start where that's not the concern. It's just going to be maintaining that and the consistency and whether those bats wake up, because the pitching so far looks good.
Hey, Rod, I got to ask, have you ever covered a game at PNC Park in Pittsburgh? Because it looks beautiful.
Not covered, but my son and I have been, and it is a magnificent. The view right off of the water is exactly what you've got to do when you have waterfront parks and property like that you've got to make it scenic. And every day that you go, you just like, hey, I'm at the park and this is so cool. And they do that. San Francisco does that very well too. And San Diego to a degree also. These parks that are right by the water do well with it, and you'll get the fans packing it just for nothing else, just for the view.
Oh, it's definitely nice to look at on TV, that's for sure. I want to ask you one quick Lions question before we move on to Woodward Pistons, and it's about the draft. And I know we ask you about the draft from pretty much every time you're on, but I just want to ask you this quick question. At 29, whether it's who they pick, whether they trade up or they trade back, is there anything that Brad Holmes could do this year that would make you upset?
Ooh, good question.
Draft a punter? I don't know.
Yeah, fair. That's kind of what I was looking for.
No, because you're only looking to strengthen your team and the depth that you have. We've seen the role that injuries have played, and you've got other guys who can step in. You're really just drafting for, hey, maybe this is a guy who will step in at some point later. Because you're thinking years ahead when you start looking at this. The Jamison Williams wasn't a pick for that particular moment. That was some point down the road, we're going to need a guy like that. And he's going to take some time before he develops. But when he does, he's going to be a weapon that we're able to use.